Hey, friends! This time I have a movie to share with you that you've probably never heard of, and that's something we need to change right now. This time we're talking about The Fourth War from 1988, a Cold War contest of wills, directed by the legendary John Frankenheimer. Our story goes like this. One day in 1988, we meet Colonel Knowles on his way to take command of an American base in West Germany, just across the border from Czechoslovakia, which is under Ruski occupation. And those Ruskies are up to no good, as usual. Now, Knowles is a loose cannon. He's been a soldier all his adult life, and now he has no one to fight. His personal life is empty, and he's frustrated and burnt out. He only got this command thanks to a general who served with Knowles back in Nam. But this is his last chance. If he muffs this assignment, he'll be drummed out of the service. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Colonel Clark, is a West Pointer who is concerned about Knowles going off half-cocked. The good guys patrol a sort of neutral zone between the two countries. On his first day inspecting the zone, Knowles and the Americans see a defector trying to escape from some Ruski soldiers. They don't let that happen, of course, which pisses Knowles off. He can't shoot the Ruskies, so instead he throws a snowball at the Ruski colonel, Valachev, who returns the favor with better accuracy. This sets the stage for a battle of wills between the two men. Depressed and boozed up on his birthday, Knowles decides to pull a prank on the Ruski colonel. So Knowles starts making clandestine forays into Ruski territory to trick the Ruskis and generally annoy them. Valachev responds by blowing up the colonel's jeep. Well, Nathan Bridger isn't having any of that, and things quickly escalate, with each man crossing the line, literally and figuratively, as they keep trying to one-up one another until an all-out confrontation between the two men threatens the peace and may lead to a shooting war between both armies. The title, The Fourth War, refers to a quote attributed to Albert Einstein when he was asked what kind of weapons a Third World War would be fought with. He said he didn't know, but he was certain that the Fourth War would be fought with sticks and stones, meaning we had destroyed our civilization. In our cast, we have Roy Scheider, of course, as Colonel Knowles. We also have Harry Dean Stanton as General Hackworth. Stanton pretty much steals this one whenever he's on screen. He narrates the story as well. Tim Reid from WKRP and Frank's Place. He's here in a non-comedic role as Clark, the second-in-command. Nice to see him, and he's really good. You buy him as this West Pointer. We have Jürgen Prochnow from Das Boot as our villain, the Russian Colonel Valachev, and Dale Dye plays the Sergeant Major. Not a big role, but he's definitely doing good work. Dye was the real deal, a Marine who saw combat in Vietnam, became a Sergeant Major, and eventually earned a commission before leaving the service. He founded Warriors Incorporated, an organization that advises filmmakers on the military. He's often been cast as military officers or soldiers throughout his movie career. John Frankenheimer directs, and in his career, he had some real classics. The Manchurian Candidate, The Birdman of Alcatraz, The Train, 7 Days in May, and many, many more. Sadly, the Fourth War isn't on a par with any of those. So, where does this one fall down? Well, I think the single biggest problem here is the villain, Valachev. Valachev tries his hand at villainry a couple of times, but it mostly falls flat or seems contrived or cartoonish. He's not really a big threat. I mean, he kinda is, but not really. We never really see his backstory. He just seems to be the villain by default, rather than actually being villainous. There's a subplot with this chick trying to get Knowles to help her get into Czechoslovakia to rescue her little daughter from Roskiville. And that whole element could have been tossed out. It was probably just a way to get a cute chick in the story, and well, I'm all for that. But ultimately, I don't think it was necessary, and it kind of distracts from what's going on. She's played by Lara Harris, who appeared in The Fisher King and several other pictures, but I think she's wasted here, and again, the character is not really integral to the overall plot, the battle of wills between the two soldiers. I'd rather they spent more time building up Valachev. In fact, this kind of story could have gone two ways. First, to have Valachev be a total cipher. He's just the guy who becomes the focus for all of Knowles' anger and frustration and doesn't know why, until the end, when you find out he's not really a villain. Or you build up Valachev to show that he's a mirror image of Knowles. He's been through the same things in Afghanistan as Knowles went through in Vietnam. Both men are loose cannons and troublemakers who are given their respective commands as a sort of last chance before being drummed out of the service. And then in the end they see themselves in each other and make friends, or at least give up their hate. The Fourth War kind of tries to do both without going all in on either path, so it feels a little light, like something's missing. If they had leaned into one story type or the other, this could have been a real classic about the Cold War and the negative effects of a lifetime of soldiering with no one left to fight. But that wasn't the case here, since Valachev's story is just glossed over. Supposedly he and Knowles are the same, but we never see Valachev called on the carpet by his superiors or see his dissatisfaction with détente. He's just doing his job for the most part, so he's not much of a villain. Also, this was made in 1990, just as the Soviet Union was collapsing. At the time the movie came out, the Berlin Wall had already fallen. Since the story takes place in 1988, it seemed like the movie wasn't as topical as it could have been if it had been made just a few years earlier. At the time, the Ruskies were no longer perceived as the big monolithic threat they used to be, and so the movie came off as a little anticlimactic. And despite all it had going for it, the movie kind of withered on the vine at the box office. But none of that means you should skip it. In spite of its flaws, The Fourth War has a hell of a lot to recommend it. The cast is great, there's some good action, some wonderful cinematography of the landscape and the night scenes. It's an interesting subject to take a look at, and both Scheider and Stanton are doing their level best. Scheider especially. And Frankenheimer brings some real tension to some of the scenes. It's by no means a masterpiece or Frankenheimer's best outing, but in its own way I found it rewarding nonetheless, and well worth checking out. I'm giving this one 2 3/4 paws. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.